The surface of Varelia was silent for the first time in months. Thick smoke curled up toward a red sky, and the wind carried the smell of dust and metal. The Dauntless stood like a silver mountain among the ruins, its engines glowing softly. The humans had arrived. Queen Sarai of the Valari stepped forward, her guards close behind her. Her silver eyes studied the newcomers carefully. They were different from any race she had ever seen, strong, broad-shouldered, and wearing armor that seemed to have survived 100 battles. Their leader, Captain Arik Holt, removed his helmet and bowed slightly. "Queen Sarai?" he asked. She nodded. "And you are?" "Captain Holt of the human ship Dauntless. We received your distress signal. We came as soon as we could." The Valari guards exchanged uneasy glances. They had heard stories of humans told across the stars. Some said they were destroyers. Some said they fought wars that lasted centuries. Some said they were born from a world that tried to kill them every day. Liren, the communication officer, whispered softly, "Monsters from Earth. They say even their children can fight storms barehanded." Sarai silenced him with a glance. She stepped closer to the humans. "You heard our call, but why? You are strangers to us." Holt's face softened. "Because you asked for help. That's enough." For a moment no one spoke. Then Sarai nodded. "Then you have our thanks, Captain Holt, but I fear you may have come too late." Holt turned to look at the horizon. The land was dark, the air trembling with distant echoes. The sound of the Drav, the machines that devoured everything. "It's never too late," he said quietly. "Not while someone's still alive." The humans began setting up a base near the old mountain fortress. They worked with speed and precision, their machines humming like living creatures. Drones flew overhead, scanning the battlefield, while engineers built defensive towers from broken metal and stone. The Valari watched in silence. They had never seen such energy, such will to survive. The humans repaired damaged generators, set up energy shields, and fortified the underground tunnels where thousands of Valari had taken refuge. Sarai walked among them, amazed. "You build so fast," she said to Mara Chen, the young navigator. Mara smiled, wiping oil from her hands. "We've had practice. Our homeworld was not kind to us. Storms, earthquakes, floods. If we couldn't build fast, we wouldn't have survived." "Your world sounds cruel," Sarai said softly. Mara shrugged. "Maybe. But it taught us something, how to fight when everything seems lost." That night, under a red sky, the Valari and humans gathered near the command tower. Captain Holt stood before a glowing map, surrounded by both species. The map showed the spread of the Drav across Varelia. Holt pointed to the red zones. "These are the largest swarms. They're moving like rivers, following metal deposits and energy sources. Your cities had strong power cores, and that's why they attacked them first." Sarai nodded slowly. "And now they come for us." "Yes," Holt said. "But we're going to stop them." The Valari soldiers looked doubtful. "Stop them? We couldn't even slow them down," one said. "Their machines do not tire. They have no fear." "Then it's time to teach them what fear feels like," Holt replied calmly. "We humans have fought things worse than machines. We've fought extinction itself. Every time our world tried to kill us, we learned to fight smarter." He zoomed in on the map. "We'll use their hunger against them. We'll build traps, decoys filled with power cores to lure them. When they gather, we strike with everything we have." Karen, the Valari guard, frowned. "You speak as if you have already done this before." Holt gave a small, tired smile. "Because we have. 1,000 times in 1,000 ways." The next few days were filled with noise and work. The humans and Valari worked side by side. The Valari engineers learned from human inventors, who showed them how to combine plasma cores with kinetic explosives. The human soldiers trained the Valari warriors, teaching them hand signals, basic tactics, and how to hold the line. Mara helped a group of young Valari rebuild their communication tower. One of them, a boy named Varen, asked shyly, "Is it true, human lady, that your people once fought each other for hundreds of years?" Mara laughed softly. "Yes, it's true. We fought each other before we learned to stand together." "Then how did you survive?" he asked. "Because," she said, tightening a wire, "when humans decide to protect something, they never stop." The boy smiled faintly. "Then maybe we still have hope." The first attack came 3 days later. It started with a trembling in the ground. The humans detected it first, the rhythmic vibration of hundreds of mechanical legs moving across the plains. "Here they come," Thomas said, staring at the radar. "Hundreds of them." Holt's voice was calm but firm. Everyone to battle stations. Remember the plan. The Valari warriors took their positions on the ridge, holding energy spears that glowed faint blue. Behind them, humans aimed plasma cannons and heavy rifles. Drones hovered in the air, ready to strike. And then the Drav appeared, a swarm of black spider-like machines with glowing red eyes. They moved like a living tide, tearing through the ground, climbing over ruins, unstoppable. The Valari soldiers froze in fear, but Holt's voice thundered through the comms, steady and sure. "Hold the line. Wait for my mark!" The Drav surged forward, following the energy lure, a false beacon planted by the humans. They gathered around it, their bodies clicking and whirring. "Now," Holt shouted. The ground exploded with light. A wave of fire swept through the field, tearing the Drav apart. The humans fired in perfect rhythm, every shot precise. The Valari followed, their energy spears flashing. For the first time in months, the enemy fell back. Queen Sarai watched from the command tower, eyes wide. "They're pushing them back. They're actually winning." "Yes, Your Majesty," Lyran said, almost in disbelief. "The humans are fighting like monsters," Sarai whispered. "Beautiful monsters." After the battle, smoke and sparks filled the air. Hundreds of Drav lay broken across the battlefield. The Valari cheered weakly, hardly believing what they had seen. Captain Holt walked among the wreckage, checking for survivors. Mara and Thomas followed him, scanning the fallen machines. "They're adapting," Tomas said. "The next wave will be tougher," Holt nodded. "Then we'll be ready." He looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, he knew, other civilizations still feared humanity, the so-called monsters from Earth. But on this dying planet, they were something else. They were saviors. Later that night, Queen Sarai visited the human camp. She found Holt sitting by a small fire, sharpening a piece of metal. He stood when he saw her. "Your soldiers fought bravely," he said. "They only did because yours stood beside them," she replied. "You gave them hope again." Holt smiled faintly. "Hope is a weapon, Queen Sarai, sometimes stronger than any gun." She looked at him for a long moment. "You are not like what the stories say. They call your people monsters." Holt's eyes reflected the firelight. "Sometimes monsters are just those who refuse to die quietly." Sarai nodded slowly. "Then I'm glad the monsters came." As the fires burned low and the stars shone faintly through the red sky, the humans repaired their weapons and planned the next move. The Valari brought them food, water, and gratitude. Together they stood stronger than either could alone. But far to the east, in the dark valleys, the Drav swarm was already rebuilding, learning, changing, growing smarter, and soon they would return. The humans didn't know it yet, but the true war for Varelia had only just begun. The sun rose weakly over the scarred lands of Varelia. The light looked pale through the smoke, touching broken towers and shattered plains. The air still carried the smell of metal and ash, but for the first time in many months, the Valari woke to silence. No explosions, no screaming, no sound of the Drav tearing through cities. The humans had given them that silence. Captain Arik Holt stood on a ridge, looking across the valley. The battlefield below was filled with wrecked machines, dark shells, torn limbs, and glowing red eyes that no longer burned. Behind him, his crew worked with both humans and Valari, salvaging parts and studying the fallen enemies. Mara Chen crouched beside a broken Drav body. "They're changing, Captain," she said softly. "These machines aren't all the same. Look here. This one's armor is thicker. Its energy core is smaller but denser." Holt frowned. "They're adapting. That means they're learning from us." "Exactly. Every time we destroy them, they learn how to survive it next time." Holt crossed his arms. "Then we'll just have to learn faster." In the underground city, the Valari were rebuilding what they could. Children played again, though quietly, still frightened by the thunder in the distance. The older Valari repaired machines, purified water, and prepared food. Queen Sarai moved among them, her silver eyes calm but watchful. Every person who saw her tried to stand tall, because she gave them strength simply by walking among them. When she entered the strategy room, Holt and his officers were already waiting. Maps and data screens covered the table, showing glowing dots where Drav activity was detected. Sarai spoke first. "Your first victory gave my people new hope, Captain Holt, but we both know the Drav will return." Holt nodded. "And when they do, they'll come in greater numbers. They're testing us, finding our weaknesses. They think we'll give up?" Karen, the Valari guard, frowned. "Then what can we do?" We barely survived the last attack. We don't survive, Holt said. We fight harder. His voice was quiet but carried power. The Drav may not feel fear, but we can teach them something worse: defeat. Over the next week, the humans began training the Valari soldiers. The training fields were full every morning. The air rang with sounds of energy spears clashing, commands shouted, and boots striking dirt. Mara and Thomas showed them how to move as a unit, to fight side by side instead of alone. The Valari were quick learners, graceful and fast, but they lacked the ruthless edge that came from Earth's long history of struggle. One morning, during training, Karen faced off against a human soldier named Reed, a tall, broad man with sharp eyes. Karen fought with precision, his movements like flowing water. Reed blocked his strikes with heavy armor and countered with raw strength. Karen stumbled back, surprised. "You fight without rhythm." "No pattern," Reed grinned. "That's the point. The enemy can't read what has no pattern." Karen thought for a moment, then nodded. "Chaos as a weapon." Reed laughed. "Exactly. We humans were born in chaos." From then on, the Valari soldiers began to change their tactics. Faster, more unpredictable, more human. At night, Queen Sarai often visited the human camp. The flickering firelight reflected on the metal walls of their temporary shelters. She watched them laugh, argue, and work deep into the night. To her, they seemed both strange and familiar, creatures of warmth and storm, capable of destroying worlds but also of saving them. One night, she approached Holt, who sat alone near a small flame, studying a holographic display. "Captain Holt," she said softly, "I've been wondering, why do your people fight so fiercely for others? You do not know us. You owe us nothing." Holt looked up from the map. "Because we know what it's like to be alone, to face something bigger than you and feel helpless. Humanity has seen extinction many times, but every time we fought back. When we see others standing where we once stood, we can't walk away." Sarai's voice softened. "You call yourselves human, but the galaxy calls you monsters." Holt smiled faintly. "Maybe that's what we are, monsters who learned how to care." She looked at him for a moment longer and then smiled. "Then perhaps monsters are what the galaxy needs." Days later, scouts reported movement in the eastern valleys. The Drav were gathering again, in far greater numbers than before. The air trembled as hundreds of machines marched, their metallic legs sinking deep into the black sand. Above them, dark drones circled like vultures, their red eyes burning. Mara watched the radar in disbelief. "Captain, they're coming faster than before." "And stronger," Holt nodded slowly. "Then it's time. We hit them before they hit us." That night, under a blood-red sky, the humans and Valari prepared for war once more. The humans loaded their tanks and plasma turrets. The Valari readied their energy lances and sky drones. The mountains echoed with the sounds of engines and courage. Holt stood before his mixed army, his voice loud and clear. "The Drav believe we are weak. They believe we'll run. But tonight they'll learn what it means to fight humans and Valari. Tonight we show them what fire burns within us." A roar rose from the crowd, part human, part alien, one sound of defiance. The battle began before dawn. The Drav came in waves, moving like a storm of steel. The humans met them with fire, plasma bolts, missiles, and drones streaking through the sky. The Valari struck from the cliffs, their energy weapons cutting through the swarm. The ground shook with the sound of battle. The air glowed with light. Karen led a group of Valari warriors alongside human soldiers. When one of the Drav leaped toward them, Karen rolled beneath it and struck its core. The explosion sent sparks flying. Reed shouted, "Nice hit! Now do it again." All around them, chaos reigned. But this time the chaos belonged to the defenders. Hours passed, but the Drav kept coming. Every time one wave fell, another replaced it. The humans fought like storms, their armor scorched and weapons overheated. Mara's voice shouted through the comms, "They're flanking the ridge. We're losing ground. Hold the line." Holt shouted, "No one breaks." Then suddenly the earth split open. A massive Drav war machine, 10 times larger than the others, rose from the ground. Its eyes burned like twin suns. It opened its jaws, firing a beam of red light that tore through the battlefield. Valari and humans dove for cover. The beam sliced through the rocks, leaving molten scars in the earth. "Captain," Thomas shouted, "we can't stop that thing with our guns." Holt clenched his fists. "Then we stop it another way." He grabbed a launcher from the ground, loaded a high-density explosive, and ran toward the creature. Mara shouted, "Captain, wait!" But Holt didn't stop. He climbed over rubble and dashed through smoke. When the Drav war machine turned toward him, its red eyes locked onto his small human frame. "Come on," Holt muttered. "Look at me," he fired. The explosive hit the creature's open mouth. There was a flash, then a thunderous explosion that lit the sky. The giant machine fell, its core burning. The rest of the Drav began to retreat, their swarm breaking apart. Cheers filled the air. The Valari shouted in disbelief, and the humans laughed through exhaustion. When the battle ended, Holt stood at the edge of the cliff, breathing heavily. Queen Sarai approached him, her silver eyes filled with pride. "You face death as if it were nothing," she said. He shook his head. "It's never nothing. We just make peace with it faster." Sarai looked out over the smoking valley. "You've given us something I thought we had lost. Faith." Holt smiled. "Then keep it. You'll need it, because they'll come again." She nodded slowly. "And when they do?" He looked toward the horizon where the stars faintly shimmered through the red clouds. "Then we'll be ready, because humans don't know how to stop." That night the Valari sang songs for the first time in many months, songs of hope and courage. Children laughed again. Fires burned not in fear but in triumph, and far away deep in the black of space the Drav hive stirred. Their central core, vast and ancient, watched the battle recordings. It calculated, learned, and whispered to itself in cold mechanical tones. Humans detected. Adaptation required. The war for Virilia was far from over, but for now, in the heart of the night, the humans had proven something to the galaxy. That when monsters from Earth fight, they do not fight to survive. They fight to protect, and their fire never fades. The morning sky over Virilia was heavy and gray, the red light of distant fires fading slowly behind dark clouds. The air smelled of smoke and scorched metal. The humans in Valari had barely slept after the last battle, but they could not rest. The scouts reported that the Drav had regrouped in the eastern valleys, larger and more dangerous than before. Captain Arik Holt stood at the command table, maps and sensor readings spread before him. Beside him, Mara Chen tapped the screen nervously. "They're faster than last time. And the new units, they're armored differently, more resistant to our plasma weapons." Holt rubbed his face. "I was afraid of that. It means they've learned. We'll have to change our tactics, and not just weapons, but strategy." Karen, the Valari guard, frowned. "They're endless. Every time we kill some, more come. How long can we hold the line?" Holt looked at him steadily. "As long as we must. Every day we fight, we teach your people how to survive. Every day we grow stronger. That is what humans do. We fight and we never stop." The Valari soldiers were nervous. Many had never seen death like the humans had. For the Valari, life had been delicate and careful. For humans, life was hard, dangerous, and chaotic. But it had forged courage like steel. Holt organized a meeting between human and Valari leaders. "We will divide the city into zones. Every zone has a defender unit of humans and Valari together. Use traps, decoys, and high ground advantage. We must protect the civilians at all costs." Queen Sarai looked at him closely. "And if the Drav break through?" Holt's eyes narrowed. "Then we stand together." The room was quiet. No one doubted his words. Humans did not flee. Humans did not surrender. And now the Valari would learn to do the same. That evening, the Drav attacked. They came faster than any force the defenders had seen, a black tide rolling across the plains. Dozens of massive war machines, hundreds of smaller scouts, and swarms of flying drones filled the horizon. The ground trembled as they advanced. Holt's crew and the Valari defenders were ready. The air exploded with plasma fire, energy beams, and sonic cannons. Valari warriors on the cliffs dropped energy lances on the advancing machines, while human soldiers fired from the barricades below. For a while, the plan worked. The Drav were slowed, taking heavy losses. But then, without warning, the ground shook violently. A massive wave of machines poured from the eastern valley, faster, stronger, and smarter than before. The defenders could see them adapting, avoiding traps and breaking barriers. "Fall back," Holt shouted, moving with his squad. "Hold the civilians inside. Don't give them a chance to break our lines." The Valari tried to retreat in order, but some panicked, running blindly through the smoke. Queen Sarai watched from the command tower, her silver eyes filled with fear. Even with the humans fighting beside them, the swarm was relentless. The battle became chaos. Explosions tore through the city, fires spreading along broken buildings. The Volari fighters, though brave, were outmatched by sheer numbers. Human soldiers tried to cover them, using every tactic they had learned. Mara Chen led a group of Volari children to safety through underground tunnels. One of the children, a small boy named Varen, clutched her arm. "Are they going to win?" he whispered. Mara shook her head. "We don't give up. That's the rule." "Humans never give up, and now you won't either." The boy nodded, trying to be brave. Around them, the tunnels shook from explosions above. On the battlefield, Holt's team faced impossible choices. Thomas and Reed worked desperately to hold plasma cannons, but machines swarmed from every side. One machine, a giant with a thick black shell, smashed a barricade and advanced toward the human line. Holt grabbed a grenade launcher. "We can't stop them with guns. Take the high ground and fire everything we have." The soldiers obeyed. Energy beams lit the night, illuminating the smoke-filled city. Yet for every drive destroyed, 2 more replaced it. Chiron shouted to his unit, "Hold the line! Don't give up!" But even he felt the pressure mounting. The ground shook with every step of the enemy. At the command tower, Sarai watched the city fall into fire. She realized the humans had no easy victories. Even with them here, the cost was high. Many Volari had fallen. Several human soldiers had been lost already. "Captain Holt," she said over the comm, "we cannot hold them. We will lose everyone if this continues." Holt's voice was calm, almost too calm. "Then we fight harder. We do not retreat. If we run, the Drav will follow and everyone dies. If we stand, we give the Volari a chance to survive. And when humans stand, we make the impossible possible." Sarai swallowed her fear. She saw the truth in his words. These beings, whom the galaxy called monsters, were not leaving. They would fight even when all seemed lost. The Drav launched their deadliest attack yet, a swarm of flying machines carrying energy bombs, aimed at the underground city where civilians hid. The humans quickly organized interceptors, firing rockets and lasers into the swarm. The Volari worked alongside them, learning to shoot with precision and courage. The sky lit with explosions, bright enough to see the smoke-filled valleys in red light. Volari and human fighters risked their lives repeatedly, diving in to protect the tunnels below. Holt saw Mara and Reed take down multiple drones, coordinating with Volari snipers on the cliffs. "Good work," he shouted. "Keep them off the civilians." The Drav began to retreat temporarily, though it was clear they were not defeated. They were testing the defenders, learning from every action, adapting faster than anyone could predict. By dawn, the battlefield was quiet again, but only just. Fires still burned. Bodies of machines and fallen fighters littered the streets. Many Volari had died. Several humans were gone. The survivors gathered in small groups, exhausted, bloody, and frightened. Holt moved among them, helping the injured and checking defenses. "We survived this wave," he said. "But the next will be stronger, and we'll need to be ready." Queen Sarai approached him. "Captain, I have never seen anyone fight like your people. They say humans are monsters. But what I saw tonight was not monsters. It was courage. It was fire." Holt shook his head. "Maybe it's both. Monsters with a cause are the deadliest thing in the universe. We fight because we care. That's why we survive." Sarai looked out over the ruins. She felt hope, but also the weight of loss. "So many have died." Holt placed a hand on her shoulder. "Yes, and many will die, but what matters is that we protect those who can still live. That is the fire within us. The fire that will not die even when the world falls apart." The survivors began to rebuild, though carefully. Tents and barricades replaced destroyed buildings. Medical teams worked around the clock. Children were comforted by Volari and humans alike, slowly learning that hope could survive even in darkness. Holt gathered his remaining crew. "We cannot stop now. We need to learn from this battle. They adapt quickly. We must adapt faster. Tomorrow we go on the offensive." Mara leaned against him. "It's going to be harder than before, isn't it?" Holt's gaze was firm. "Yes, but we've already faced impossible odds. And we survived. That's all that matters. One step at a time, one fight at a time, we win." Deep in the eastern valley, the Drav hive stirred. Machines rose from the black sands, assembling into formations more intelligent and coordinated than ever before. Their sensors recorded every movement of the humans and Valari. The central core pulsed, a dark red rhythm. Humans detected, it whispered mechanically. Adaptation required. Survival probability low. Prepare countermeasures. The hive began to build new machines on faster, stronger, more dangerous. The drive would return, and when they did, the battle would be even deadlier. That night, Queen Sarai walked among her people, now learning from the humans. They repaired weapons, shared food, and taught survival skills. Valari children laughed softly as humans told stories of their world. A planet where storms could swallow cities. But humans still fought to survive. Sarai watched them and whispered to herself, "If this is what humans are, perhaps there is hope after all." Captain Holt stood nearby looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, countless worlds might call for help, and many would say humans are monsters. But here on Veralia, he knew the truth. Monsters fight. Monsters protect. Monsters inspire hope. And the fire within humans would burn long after the stars themselves grew cold. The skies of Veralia were dark with smoke, but now, among the clouds of fire and ash, a strange calm had fallen. The humans and Valari knew the final battle was coming. The Drav had regrouped, their machines stronger and smarter than before. Captain Arik Holt stood on a ridge looking down at the city below. The Valari had worked tirelessly to rebuild barricades and fortifications. Human engineers had set up plasma turrets, drones, and energy traps across the plains. "Captain," Marachen said, "they're coming. I can feel it in the sensors." "The entire swarm is moving at once," Holt nodded. "Then it's time. This is it. We either hold this ground or Veralia falls forever." Kairin, the Valari guard, clenched his fists. "We will not let that happen. My people will stand beside yours." Holt smiled faintly. "Good. Then let's show them what monsters from Earth can do, together with Valari courage." The first wave of Drav emerged from the eastern valleys just before dawn. Thousands of machines moved in perfect formation, their black metal bodies glinting under the smoky sky. Flying drones circled above, scanning for weaknesses. Holt gave the order. "Hold fire until they reach the traps." The humans and Valari waited, tense but ready. The Drav advanced, falling right into the prepared decoys. Plasma traps ignited, sonic cannons roared, and the air filled with explosions. The swarm faltered, but not for long. They adapted quickly, altering their formations and finding gaps in the defenses. "Captain," Mara shouted, "they're avoiding the traps. They're learning." "Then we make them learn faster," Holt replied calmly. The battle escalated. Valari warriors fired energy lances from the cliffs while humans fought below with rifles, cannons, and explosives. Every time a Drav fell, another took its place. The ground shook under the endless march of metal. Holt moved through the battlefield like a storm. He directed reinforcements, led small strike teams, and inspired both humans and Valari to stand when all seemed lost. Kairin fought beside him, striking down machines with precise, flowing movements. "Your people are incredible," Kairin shouted over the noise. "I've never seen anyone fight like this." Holt grinned. "You're learning fast. Courage is contagious." But the Drav had a new weapon, a massive war machine far larger than any before. Its core glowed red like molten metal, and its legs tore through the fortified barricades. The defenders tried to slow it, but nothing worked. Queen Sarai watched from the command tower, her silver eyes wide with fear. "Captain, it's too strong." Holt's voice was firm. "Then we strike at the heart. I'll lead a small team inside that machine. The rest of you hold the line," Mara gasped. "Captain, that's suicide." Holt shook his head. "No, it's the only way. We have to end this or everything we've fought for will be lost." The humans prepared a daring plan. They would infiltrate the massive machine and plant a fusion core in its central reactor. A risky move, but the only way to stop the swarm permanently. Holt's team consisted of Mara, Thomas, Reed, and a few elite Valari warriors, including Kairin. They boarded small hovercrafts and darted through the battlefield, dodging fire and broken machines. The Drav noticed them, firing lasers and missiles, but the small team moved with speed and precision. Inside the machine, the air was thick with heat and sparks. The hum of energy was deafening. Holt and his team moved carefully, planting the fusion core at the heart of the Drav war machine. "Almost there," Holt whispered. "Just a few more seconds." The machine began to sense the intrusion, shaking violently. Red lights flashed and energy beams fired blindly into the room. "Move faster," Mara shouted. her voice rising above the chaos. Outside, the main human and Valari forces held the line with everything they had. Plasma bolts and energy lances tore through the Drav swarm, slowing the advance long enough for Holt's team to reach the core. "Core is in place," Holt shouted into the comms. "Get clear." The team sprinted out just as the fusion core detonated. A massive explosion engulfed the Drav war machine. The ground shook violently and a shockwave tore through the battlefield, destroying hundreds of smaller machines. For a moment, silence fell. The smoke cleared, revealing the destruction. Thousands of Drav lay scattered and broken across the plains. The remaining swarm retreated, their hive disrupted and leaderless. The survivors, human and Valari alike, cheered, though many were wounded or exhausted. The battlefield was filled with smoke and fire, but for the first time in months there was victory. Queen Sarai approached Holt, her silver eyes reflecting the glow of fires. "You saved us. All of us." Holt shook his head. "We did it together. Humans fight, yes, but we fight for others. That's what makes the difference." Karen stepped forward. "Your people, they are not monsters. They are heroes." Holt smiled faintly. "Maybe monsters with hearts. But sometimes, that's what the galaxy needs." In the following days, the humans helped the Valari rebuild their cities. Damaged energy cores were repaired, water and food supplies restored, and children returned to play in the streets. The Valari learned much from the humans: tactics, technology, and the strength that comes from never giving up. Sarai stood among her people, watching humans and Valari working side by side. "If your people are called monsters," she said to Holt, "then perhaps monsters are what we needed all along." Holt smiled. "Sometimes monsters are the ones who save worlds." The humans repaired their ship, the Dauntless, preparing for the journey home. Mara and Thomas checked supplies, Reed cleaned weapons, and Holt oversaw the final repairs. Before leaving, Queen Sarai presented them with gifts, small crystals filled with Valari light, a symbol of gratitude and hope. "Take these," she said softly, "so that wherever you go you remember the lives you saved." Holt accepted the gifts with a nod. "We'll carry them with us always." As the Dauntless lifted from Varelia's surface, the planet below looked different. Fires still glowed in distant valleys, but life was returning. People walked freely, children laughed, and the survivors rebuilt their homes. Holt looked out the viewing window at the horizon. "We may be called monsters," he said quietly, "but we are monsters who fight for hope." Mara smiled beside him. "And maybe that's enough to make the galaxy believe in heroes." Far away, in the remnants of the Drav hive, broken machines lay scattered. The central core was destroyed, its red glow extinguished. The swarm had learned, but too late. A single mechanical voice echoed weakly through the ruins. "Humans detected. Adaptation failed. Threat eliminated. Retreat." The Drav, relentless for centuries, had met something they could not defeat. They had met humans. Years later, monuments stood on Varelia, where humans and Valari had fought side by side. Crystals glowed in the night, telling the story of a planet saved by courage and unity. One inscription, written in both Valari and human script, read, "They were called monsters. We called them saviors." Children touched the stones, hearing stories of humans who had crossed the stars to save a dying world. And somewhere in their hearts, they understood a simple truth: courage, hope, and sacrifice could make even the smallest of beings giants among the stars. Captain Holt and his crew returned to Earth, weary, but proud. The galaxy still whispered about humans, monsters, heroes, saviors. But Holt knew the truth. Humans fought not for glory, but because they could not stand by while others suffered. And as long as humans lived, the fire within them would never die. For in every corner of the galaxy, there would always be worlds calling for help, and the monsters from Earth would answer. The galaxy was old, vast, and filled with wonders. Thousands of civilizations had risen and fallen under its endless stars. Great empires had built cities on worlds made of crystal and light. Others had perished quietly, leaving only dust and memories. But even in this endless sea of life, there were still places no one dared to go. One of those places was the Void Rift, a stretch of cold space between the arms of the galaxy. Every species knew it by a different name: the Empty Path, the Dying Zone, the Dark Veil. It was a region where ships disappeared without a trace, where signals faded and where even light seemed to move slower. For centuries, the rift had been left alone. Then one night, every receiver, every listening post across the stars picked up the same strange signal. It was faint, broken, and filled with static. But through the distortion, a voice could be heard, old, tired, and full of fear. "We call for heroes. Our worlds are dying." The message came from a species called the Virene, a peaceful race known for their art, wisdom, and long history. They had never asked anyone for help before. Their culture believed in balance, in quiet endurance. If they were calling for heroes, then something terrible must have happened. Many civilizations heard the call. Some turned their antennas away. Others discussed it in great councils. A few promised to consider sending aid, but no one moved. The risk was too great, the rift too dark, and yet, on a small blue planet far from the galactic center, the call was not ignored. The humans hear the call on Earth. The message reached the global space network, and within minutes it was being studied in every control center. When the translation was confirmed, the message spread like fire. It was on every screen, every radio, every news feed. They call for heroes. Their worlds are dying. For most people, it was a sad story, something far away, something tragic but untouchable. But for others, it was a challenge. Humanity had come a long way. The old wars and divisions had faded. The United Earth Alliance had turned their efforts to the stars. They had explored, traded, built colonies, and made peace with dozens of alien species. But they had never faced a cry like this before. When the council gathered, there was little debate. The answer was clear. "We go." The words came from Admiral Kaito's son, commander of the United Earth Fleet. Around him sat representatives from every nation and colony, scientists, engineers, doctors, and officers. He looked at them and said, "They asked for heroes. But I think what they need are humans." The gathering of the fleet within hours, preparations began. The flagship Sol's Promise stood ready in Earth's orbit, a vast silver vessel shining in the light of the sun. Around it, hundreds of smaller ships assembled, transports, supply carriers, science vessels, and escort fighters. Volunteers flooded in, not only soldiers but builders, medics, and even farmers. Humanity didn't come to conquer. They came to help. Captain Alara Hayes, a calm and strong woman in her 40s, was chosen to lead the mission. She had seen many worlds and saved countless lives, not through power, but through compassion. When the Admiral gave her command of Sol's Promise, she accepted with a steady heart. Before departure, she stood before the gathered crew, thousands of men and women, all ready to face the unknown. Her voice was firm but kind. "You all know what waits beyond that rift. We may not come back, but we are going because someone asked for help. That's what makes us human." The speech was short, but it burned into every heart. Families watched from the surface of Earth as the great ships rose through the clouds, leaving trails of golden light. Children waved to the sky, whispering silent prayers for those brave enough to go where none had gone before. The galaxy watched too. While others stayed behind, humanity moved forward. Into the dark, the fleet entered the rift on the 7th day. The moment they crossed the edge, everything changed. The stars outside stretched and twisted like water. Static filled the comms. Power readings flickered. Some of the younger crew felt dizzy. Others heard faint whispers through the walls of the ship. But humanity had learned long ago how to face fear. They didn't stop. The engineers adjusted the shields. The scientists recalibrated the scanners. And in the mess halls, the crew told stories, laughed, and sang songs to keep their spirits alive. Captain Alara watched the endless darkness from the command deck. There were no stars, only faint lights from the fleet moving like small candles through a sea of shadow. Beside her stood Lieutenant Ryan Doss, her second in command. "You think anyone else is coming?" he asked quietly. Alara shook her head. "If they were, we would have seen them by now. Looks like it's just us." Ryan smiled faintly. "Then it's a good thing we brought everyone." First contact after several days of travel, they found the first sign of the Virene, a broken station orbiting a dead planet. The surface was covered in black marks as if burned by fire. The team landed carefully, wearing protective suits. Inside, they found survivors, thin, pale beings with translucent skin and eyes like glass. They looked fragile, almost ghost-like, yet when they saw the humans, something flickered in their eyes, something like hope. Their leader, Erithal, stepped forward. His voice trembled when he spoke. "You came Ilara removed her helmet so they could see her face. You called for heroes. We came to help. The Vereen looked confused. Others heard our call. They said the rift was cursed. They said it was hopeless. Maybe it is, Ilara said softly. But we don't leave people behind. That moment became the start of something powerful. The humans began repairing the station. They shared food, warmth, and medicine. They taught the Vereen how to strengthen their power systems and clean their air filters. Small acts of kindness, simple things, but to the Vereen it was like watching light return after endless night. Whispers in the dark as they worked, the humans learned more. The Vereen spoke of the umbral swarm, creatures of living shadow that devoured light, energy, and even hope. They had come from deep within the rift, spreading like a storm. Entire worlds had fallen. The Vereen's once bright cities were now empty ruins. The humans listened carefully. They didn't run. They didn't panic. Instead, they planned. Engineers mapped possible safe zones. Soldiers built defenses. Scientists studied the strange energy fields that hid the swarm. The Vereen were astonished. Humanity's energy felt so different, restless, determined, alive. They worked with a strength that came not from power but from heart. One night, Erithol stood beside Ilara on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Your people are not what we expected, he said. Ilara smiled faintly. I've heard that before. When we called for heroes, he continued, we thought warriors would come, people of great power and glory. But your kind, you fix broken things. You bring warmth. You smile in the dark. Why? Ilara's eyes softened. Because we know what it's like to be alone. We've lost too, so when someone calls for help, we go. Erithol lowered his head. Perhaps that is what true heroism is. The message spreads word of the humans' arrival spread among the remaining Vereen colonies. Hope, once forgotten, began to grow again. Other galactic races started paying attention. Some watched with curiosity, others with disbelief. No one could understand why humanity would risk everything for strangers. But among the humans, there was no question. They had found their purpose not in conquering stars, but in protecting them. The fleet established a base near the edge of the rift, naming it Haven Point. From there, rescue missions spread like ripples in a pond. Every time they saved a life, every time a light turned back on, the darkness seemed to retreat a little. The galaxy had called for heroes, and humanity, ordinary, stubborn, brave humanity, had answered with everything they were. They didn't come with crowns or banners. They came with open hands, bright eyes, and a simple promise. We are here. You are not alone. And in that dark part of space where stars had long stopped shining, a faint glow began to return. It wasn't the light of a sun or a star, it was the light of human hope, the kind that could cross any distance, face any fear, and spark a fire that no darkness could ever swallow.